Now, it's one of the rarest and most collectible classic cars, and I'd love one, although a little large for me, perhaps. I'm talking about the Bristol. They were first made by the Bristol Aeroplane Company back in the 40s. Well, this afternoon at Filton Airfield, their birthplace, a dozen of these beautiful cars set out on the first stage of a trip to Bordeaux. I'm pleased to say they're now parked up right next to our studios here in Brislington, and we can join Dominic Velitis to drool over them and find out why they're heading to France.
Well, thanks. Well, this is just one of 12 cars taking part in tomorrow's special anniversary trip to Bordeaux. It is, of course, a Bristol 403, which incidentally is the same model of car that made the original 1954 trip to France to mark the 10th anniversary of the liberation. Now, just to give you a bit of background on the car, it has a 2-litre engine. It can do a top speed of 90 miles per hour and costs in the region of £20,000. More on the cars in a bit, but first, here's how final preparations have been going at Filton Airfield for tomorrow's big drive. From one Bristol icon to another. In 1954, it was a single Bristol 403 that made the journey to Bordeaux to mark the 10th anniversary of the liberation. Tomorrow, and 50 years to the day, all 12 of these Bristols and their owners will recreate that trip. For the man behind the car, it's a testament to the longevity and appeal of the Bristol brand.
No, I think it's a jolly good idea. We did do those sort of trips 50 years ago. When you realise now that the cars that are going, the cars of that era, I think it's absolutely wonderful to have that enthusiasm going on. Most motor clubs do that sort of thing, and I personally can remember every trip that was done in those days, so all that was very nostalgic.
Production of Bristol cars began in 1946 at the Bristol Aircraft Corporation in Filton. First off the production line, the Type 400 Saloon. A legend was born. Over the years, other models followed. In 1999, the company launched the Bristol Fighter. With an 8-litre engine and a top speed of 200 miles per hour, many viewed the car with envy. Few, though, could afford the £200,000 price tag. The cars taking part in tomorrow's anniversary trip to France may be expensive. They are nonetheless classics and real Bristol icons. Well, classics they are indeed, and joining me now is the chairman of the Bristol Owners Club, Geoffrey Herdman. Geoffrey Herdman, first of all, tell us about the trip tomorrow. Why are you doing it?
The trip tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of the trip, which was done in 1954. Even more significant, the 27th of August 1954 was also a Friday, so we thought this was a pretty special event.
It'll be a very different trip, won't it, from the one 50 years ago?
Indeed, in 1954, the 403 went down to Eastleigh and it went on a Bristol freighter, whereas we're having to take a catamaran. However, in 1954, they were fog-bound in Eastleigh for 3 hours, and so we will actually arrive in France before they did. However, one or two things are the same, and when we get to Bordeaux, we're going to the same restaurant that they went to in 1954 and having exactly the same menu.
Now, onto the cars themselves. What is so appealing about them?
I think the main thing is that they're hand-built, and they're hand-built by aircraft manufacturers to aircraft standards, and they are still absolutely beautiful cars to drive.
Finally, and very quickly, they're very expensive cars, aren't they? Do you guys ever get a bit nervous about driving them around busy city streets like Bristol, for example?
Well, we had a pretty hairy drive down here from Filton, and I guess the answer is no, we've all made it.
Geoffrey Herdman, thank you very much for your time. Well, the guys are hoping to leave before first light tomorrow. Hopefully the weather will be good enough and the driving conditions favourable. Back to you.
Well, I wonder if they'd swap one of those from mine. I don't think so.